The door slammed open, and I stood frozen in the hallway. There she was, my wife, standing in front of me with a smirk on her face, fresh from her weekend getaway. But the moment my eyes landed on her phone, I knew. She'd been cheating. I had only one question for her. Why did you lie to me? Her response? It was just a little fun. What's the big deal? And that's when it hit me. The woman I thought I knew was gone. What happened next, though, would change everything. My mind was racing, trying to process what I had just heard. It was just a little fun. What's the big deal? Those words echoed in my mind as I stood there, trying to understand how this had happened. Sarah had been my everything. We had built our lives together, shared countless moments, and I thought I knew her better than anyone. But now, in one cold sentence, she had shattered everything. I had so many questions, but they all seemed to get tangled in my throat. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to hit something, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed answers first. Real answers. And I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. Her smug expression as she looked at me, waiting for me to react, made my blood boil. There was no remorse in her eyes. No guilt. She didn't even seem surprised by my anger. It was almost as if she had been expecting it. This wasn't the woman I married. The Sarah I knew would have been apologetic, confused, devastated. Instead, she seemed almost indifferent. Tell me everything, I managed to say, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. How long has this been going on? She leaned back against the couch, crossing her arms. It doesn't matter, she replied casually. It was just a fling. Nothing serious. I don't see why you're making such a big deal out of this. You should have known something was up when I started pulling away from you. Her words cut through me. Pulling away from you. She was admitting it, in the most nonchalant way. I wasn't imagining things. She had been distant. For months now, there had been this strange emptiness between us. I had tried to talk to her about it. I had asked her, many times, if something was wrong, if she needed space. But each time, she brushed me off, telling me I was overthinking it, that everything was fine. I guess I should have seen the signs. But hearing her say it, so casually, made my stomach churn. Who is he? I demanded, feeling the heat rise in my chest. Jake, right? The guy in the messages. Her face twitched, but she quickly recovered. It doesn't matter. Why are you even worried about him? He's just some guy I met while I was away. I told you, it's nothing serious. Nothing serious? I repeated, incredulous. You slept with him, didn't you? You spent time with him. That is serious. This isn't just some fun, little fling, Sarah. This is betrayal. Her eyes narrowed, and she scoffed. You're still stuck on that? You know, I really don't get why you're so upset. You didn't even notice how distant I was getting. You're always so wrapped up in your own little world. You never even asked me how I was feeling. I needed something. You just weren't there for me. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. She was blaming me now? It was my fault that she cheated? Are you seriously going to blame me for this? I asked, trying to control the fury building inside me. You could have talked to me. We could have worked through whatever it was. But no, you went behind my back. She shrugged, almost as if she didn't care at all. You wouldn't have understood. You never do. It's not like you really care about me anymore. Her words hit me like a slap. She didn't even see it. She didn't see how much I cared, how much I had been trying, how much I had been giving. But now, I was just the guy who didn't measure up. And Jake? He was the guy who gave her the attention she wanted. How long has this been going on? I asked again, my voice more forceful this time. She paused, glancing down at her hands for a moment before looking me in the eye. A couple of months. Not long, but it felt like forever. A couple of months. That was how long she had been lying to me. She had been living a double life, pretending everything was fine while sleeping with someone else. A wave of nausea washed over me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think straight. I had trusted her. I had loved her with everything I had. And she had just torn it all down for a couple of months of cheap thrills. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't even think about what came next. But what I knew for sure was that this wasn't over. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not like this. You don't get it, do you? I said, my voice shaking. This isn't just about him. It's about you. You betrayed me. You lied to me every single day, and now you're sitting here acting like it's no big deal. She was silent, her expression shifting slightly. For the first time, I could see a flicker of guilt in her eyes, but it was brief, like she was trying to suppress it. I stepped closer to her, not caring about the space between us anymore. I needed her to understand. I trusted you, Sarah, and you've completely destroyed that trust. She finally looked up at me, and this time, There was no sarcasm or defensiveness in her eyes. Just a cold, hard look. You think I don't know that? You think I'm happy about what I've done? I'm not. But I'm not going to sit here and apologize for something I don't even regret. I took a step back, letting her words sink in. She didn't regret it. That was the real knife in my chest. For a moment, I felt completely empty. Like everything that mattered had just slipped away, and I was left with nothing but anger and heartbreak. Where do we go from here? I asked, my voice hollow. What happens now? She sighed, standing up and walking to the window, looking out over the city as if she was lost in thought. I don't know, but I'm not going to beg you to stay if that's what you're waiting for. And with that, she turned her back on me. Just like that. The silence that followed felt suffocating. I stood there, staring at Sarah's back as she looked out the window, as if she were looking past me, past our marriage, to some distant, better future. A future where I didn't exist. The realization hit me hard, and I felt a mix of anger and emptiness swell inside me. This was it. I had loved her. I had trusted her. And she had turned me into the villain of her story. I had no idea who she was anymore. You're really not going to apologize? I asked, my voice quieter now, almost as if I was afraid to hear the answer. The thought of her not regretting any of this gnawed at my insides, like a bitter poison. She didn't answer at first, just stared out the window. When she finally spoke, it was without turning to face me. I don't owe you an apology, not for this. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't love you the way you think I did. I blinked. The words didn't even register at first. I'd heard them, but they didn't make sense. What do you mean you didn't love me the way I think you did? Of course you did. We built a life together. We promised each other. Sarah laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that sent a chill down my spine. You never really saw me, did you? You saw the version of me you wanted to see. You saw the woman you thought I was. But I wasn't that. Not ever. I took a step forward, the urge to confront her growing. So what? You just played me. You spent all this time pretending to be something you weren't? You lied to me every day. She turned then, finally facing me. There was no remorse in her eyes, no sign that she cared about what she had just done to me. If anything, she looked more annoyed than anything else. You never really paid attention, did you? I was always trying to tell you something was off, but you were too wrapped up in your own world to listen. I didn't want this marriage anymore. But you didn't even notice. The words hit like a slap. I didn't notice? I repeated, my voice breaking now. You're telling me this is my fault? I'm not saying it's your fault, she said, taking a step toward me. I'm just saying that you were never the partner I needed. And I wasn't the partner you wanted. But I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not. Her words hung in the air, a crushing weight pressing down on my chest. Every second that passed, the reality of this betrayal set in deeper. She wasn't even trying to salvage anything. She wasn't even trying to fix it. She had made up her mind. And she wasn't apologizing. Not now, not ever. For a moment, I didn't know what to do. Anger surged through me, and I had to bite my tongue to keep from screaming. But then, something shifted in me. The need for answers, for closure, suddenly felt hollow. The truth was already out there. She had betrayed me. She had destroyed everything we had, and now, standing before me, she was acting like it was no big deal. Like I was the one who was wrong for feeling hurt. I clenched my fists, trying to steady my breathing. How long? I asked again. How long has this been going on? How long have you been seeing Jake? She looked away, crossing her arms again. You're still focused on him? It doesn't matter. He's not important. We're not important. The words stung, but it was clear she wasn't going to give me any real answers. I wasn't going to get a heartfelt explanation, a tearful apology. She had already made her decision. It had been made a long time ago, and I had been too blind to see it. So, what now? I asked, my voice tight. You just want me to walk away? You want me to accept that this is over? Sarah looked at me then, her eyes colder than I had ever seen them. If you think I'm going to beg you to stay, you're wrong. This is it. I'm done with you. I'm done with this marriage. Her words were like a final blow. She was telling me she was finished. I couldn't even begin to process what that meant. After everything we had been through, she was just going to walk away without a second thought. I stood there, the weight of everything crashing down on me. The love I had given her, the years I had spent with her, all the little moments that had seemed so important, they all felt like they had been nothing but lies. Lies that I had ignored, that I had let slide, thinking everything was fine. But now, it was too late. She had made her choice. She had already moved on. I had no choice but to face the harsh reality that my marriage was over. The woman I had trusted with everything had betrayed me, And now she was dismissing me like I was nothing more than an inconvenience. "I guess this is it then," I said, the words bitter as they left my mouth. "We're done." Sarah didn't even flinch. "Yeah, we are," she said, turning away again. "Now if you'll excuse me, I have to get some sleep. I've had a long day." Just like that. No emotion. No apology. No remorse. She had destroyed me, and now she was moving on as if nothing had happened. I stood there for a long time after she left, staring at the empty space between us. It was over. My marriage, my life, everything I had worked for, it had all crumbled in an instant. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The anger, the disbelief, the gut-wrenching sense of betrayal kept me awake, pacing back and forth in the living room, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My mind was a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. How could she do this? Why didn't I see the signs? How could I have been so blind? I tried to convince myself that I was overreacting, that I was just caught up in the heat of the moment. But deep down, I knew the truth. She had cheated. She had lied. And she didn't even seem to care. In fact, it was almost like she was relieved that the truth had come out. Like she had been waiting for me to finally catch on. As the hours ticked by, I thought back to every moment of our relationship. The way we used to laugh together, the inside jokes, the plans we made for the future. It all felt so distant now, like it was a life I had once lived but could never go back to. The more I thought about it, the more I realized just how much she had taken from me. Not just my trust, but my sense of self. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. I kept replaying her words in my mind, trying to make sense of them. "I'm done with you. I'm done with this marriage." It was like she had just turned off a switch, shutting me out completely. No remorse. No regret. Just cold indifference. It was morning before I finally sat down, exhausted and drained. I hadn't eaten, hadn't really moved since she left. But I knew I couldn't stay like this. I couldn't let her win. I picked up my phone and started scrolling through the messages between Sarah and Jake. I had to see it again, to make sure I wasn't imagining things. The more I read, the clearer it became. It wasn't just some one-time thing. This had been going on for months. The messages were so casual, so intimate, as if she had already checked out of our marriage long before I even suspected anything. It hurt to read, but I needed to know. I needed to understand how deep the betrayal really went. Jake wasn't just some random fling. He was her escape, her way out. And I had been too blind to see it. I felt the rage building inside me again, and I had to force myself to calm down. There was no point in getting angry now. Anger wouldn't fix anything. But what could I do? What should I do? I couldn't stand the thought of just letting her walk away, without any consequences, without any accountability. This was my life too. I had a right to be angry, a right to demand answers. But what did I even expect? What could I say to someone who had already checked out? What was left to salvage? I had always prided myself on being a man of principle. I believed in fairness, in respect, in loyalty. But now, standing at the wreckage of my life, I realized how fragile those principles really were. Sarah had shattered everything. She had broken every promise, every vow we had made to each other. And what did I have left? Nothing. The day dragged on as I thought about what to do next. Should I leave? Should I stay? Part of me wanted to pack up my things and leave, to cut ties with her completely. But then there was the part of me that still loved her, still wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could fix things. But I knew that was a lie. There was no fixing this. There was no going back. She had made her choice. And I had to make mine. That evening, Sarah came home. She didn't say anything to me at first. She just walked in, went straight to the bedroom, and closed the door behind her. I stood there for a moment, staring at the door, wondering what was going through her mind. Did she feel guilty? Did she even care? Or was she just waiting for me to accept it and move on? I didn't know what to say, but I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to confront her again, but this time it was different. I wasn't the man I had been before. I wasn't the man who would sit back and take it. I walked to the bedroom door and knocked, my heart pounding in my chest. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady but cold. "We need to talk." She opened the door, a bored expression on her face, as if she had already moved on from everything. "What now?" she asked, her voice almost mocking. I took a deep breath. "I'm done pretending like everything is fine. You've ruined everything. And I need you to understand that." She rolled her eyes, clearly uninterested. "What do you want from me? An apology? I already told you. I'm not sorry. I don't regret anything." My fists clenched at my sides, but I forced myself to stay calm. "I don't need your apology," I said, my voice low but firm. I just need you to understand that this is over. I'm done." For the first time, I saw something shift in her eyes. There was a brief moment of panic, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by that same indifference. "Fine," she said, her voice cool. "I don't have time for this. If you're done, then leave." Her words hit me harder than anything else. It was like she had already moved on, already made peace with everything. And I was left here, drowning in this mess that she had created. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. There was nothing more to say. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her retreat to the bed, her back to me as though I were some inconvenience she was ready to dismiss. The cold indifference she was radiating hit me like a cold wave. Is this really how it ends? I thought, with her walking away as though I'm the one at fault? But I knew one thing for certain: I couldn't just walk away without doing something, without some closure. I couldn't let her walk all over me, pretend that what she did didn't matter. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, was a complete stranger to me now. And she was so casual about it, as if our entire relationship was just a game to her, a little fun. I wasn't ready to leave, not yet. I needed her to feel the weight of what she had done. Even if she didn't care, I did. I couldn't just roll over and let her treat me like this. The silence in the house was suffocating. I could hear her moving around in the bedroom, probably changing into something more comfortable, maybe even texting Jake. Every movement she made seemed calculated, deliberate, as though she was trying to ignore me, or worse, to make me feel like I was the one who had lost. I walked toward the kitchen, my mind still spinning. My hands trembled as I poured myself a drink. I needed to think, to clear my head. But the more I tried to focus, the more I kept seeing her face, her cold expression, the way she so casually dismissed everything we had shared. And with every passing minute, my anger grew. How had I been so blind? How had I missed all the signs? I wasn't an idiot. I knew that something wasn't right for months. But I had ignored the little things. The late nights, the sudden need for space, the way she had started withdrawing from me. But I told myself it was just a phase, that things would get better. If I just gave her time, things would go back to normal. But no, that wasn't the case. It wasn't a phase. It was a slow unraveling, one that she had been orchestrating behind my back. And I had been too foolish, too trusting to see it. As the night wore on, I started to feel numb. I had been trying so hard to hold it all together, to find some way to make sense of this betrayal, but I couldn't. There was no logic behind it. No reason. She had done this, and now she was acting like it was no big deal. I looked at the clock. It was getting late. Sarah hadn't come out of the bedroom. It felt like she was avoiding me on purpose, like she was pretending I didn't exist. The pain in my chest was unbearable, but I had to face it. I couldn't keep running from this reality. She had already checked out of our marriage, and I had to accept it. I took a deep breath and walked to the bedroom door again. This time, I didn't knock. I didn't have the patience for formalities. I just opened the door and walked in. Sarah was lying on the bed, scrolling through her phone, probably texting Jake again. She didn't even look up when I entered. The nerve. "Are you seriously not going to look at me?" I asked, my voice shaking with barely contained anger. She didn't move, didn't even flinch. "What's there to talk about?" she muttered, her voice laced with apathy. That was it. That was the final straw. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get through to her. She needed to understand what she had done, even if she didn't care. I stepped closer to the bed, my voice firm now. "You know, I trusted you. I loved you. And you've destroyed that. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me." She finally looked up at me, her face twisting into a sneer. "Oh, please, spare me the drama. You knew I wasn't happy. I've been telling you that for months. But you never listened. You're just upset because I didn't keep pretending like everything was fine." I felt my fist clench. She was gaslighting me now, twisting the situation around to make me the villain. It was insane. So this was my fault? I said, my voice rising now. "You cheated on me because I didn't listen to you? That's what this is all about." Sarah's face darkened, her eyes narrowing with irritation. "No, I cheated on you because I'm done with you. I've been done with you for months. But you just kept going on and on about how everything's fine, and I couldn't stand it anymore. I felt like the ground was shifting beneath me, like the woman I had once known had just been swallowed up by someone I didn't even recognize. This wasn't a person I could have a conversation with. This was a woman who had no empathy, no remorse. "I can't believe you're saying this," I muttered, almost to myself. "You've destroyed everything we had, and you're sitting here acting like it's my fault." She rolled her eyes. "Well, maybe you should have paid attention sooner. Maybe you should have seen that we weren't the same anymore. but I'm not going to apologize for living my life the way I want to. There it was again. The complete lack of accountability. She was still trying to justify her actions, still trying to make it seem like she wasn't the one who had wrecked our marriage. I couldn't stay here anymore. I couldn't keep having this same argument with her. It was pointless. I had to make a decision. I stood there, staring at her, trying to control the torrent of emotions building inside me. But nothing she said could take away the fact that she had already made her choice. She had chosen him. She had chosen her own happiness over what we had built together. It was clear now. There was no point in trying to fix this. There was no point in begging for answers, for closure. She wasn't going to give me any. I turned and walked out of the bedroom, my heart heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. The hardest part wasn't the anger or the betrayal. It was the fact that she didn't care. And that, more than anything, hurt the most. I didn't sleep that night. There was too much going through my mind. Too much anger, too much pain, too many unanswered questions. I didn't know where to go from here. The house felt empty without Sarah, yet her presence lingered in every room, in every corner. The silence was deafening. For the first time in a long while, I felt completely alone. I had to make a choice. I knew that. Staying in this limbo, trapped in this toxic relationship, wasn't going to fix anything. But the reality of it all hit me like a ton of bricks. I had always thought that if something like this ever happened, I'd walk away with my dignity intact. I'd be strong. I'd move on. But now that it was real, now that it was happening, all I could think about was how much it hurt. How much she had hurt me. I kept playing everything over and over in my head. The signs I had missed. The lies she had told me. The months of emotional distance I hadn't even recognized. I had been so busy trying to make things work, trying to be the perfect husband, that I had completely ignored the fact that she had already checked out. And now, here we were. At the end of it all. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, pulling me out of my thoughts. I glanced at it, half expecting it to be a message from Sarah. But when I saw the name on the screen, my stomach sank. It was Jake. Of course, it was. I picked up the phone, unsure of what I was about to read. The message was short, almost casual. You good? I miss you already. I stared at the words for a long time, feeling the bile rise in my throat. Miss you already? She had been with him all weekend, and now he was sending her messages like they were some kind of couple. I had been living a lie, and she had been living a completely different life behind my back. It felt like I had been blindsided, punched in the gut. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, to scream and destroy everything in my path. But what would that solve? Nothing. I wasn't going to let her have that kind of control over me. I wasn't going to give in to the anger that was consuming me. I set the phone down, my hands shaking, and tried to focus on something, anything else. I needed to calm down. I needed to think. But how could I think when my entire world had just come crashing down? I had to make a choice. Stay or leave. Walk away from this marriage and from the woman who had betrayed me, or fight for something that was already broken beyond repair. I was so consumed by the turmoil in my head that I barely even heard the front door open. Sarah walked in, her footsteps slow, her eyes not meeting mine. She had no idea what I had just read, but somehow, I felt like she already knew. She could feel the tension in the air. The things left unsaid. She paused when she saw me standing there, but still didn't say anything. There was something almost too calm about her, too distant. It was like she had already moved on from this whole situation. It was almost as if she had given herself permission to stop caring about me, about us. Are you just going to stand there? She finally asked, her voice sharp, but not with anger. It was just indifferent. I thought you were done with me. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. I didn't know what to say. There were no words that could express the way I felt. I could feel my anger rising again, but this time, it wasn't just anger. It was heartbreak. It was loss. It was the overwhelming realization that the woman I loved had betrayed me, and now she was acting like she had done nothing wrong. You're right, I said quietly, trying to steady my voice. I'm done. I'm done with the lies, the cheating, the games. I'm done pretending like everything is okay when it's not. Her face remained impassive, but I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, maybe guilt, maybe regret, but it was gone so quickly I wasn't sure if I imagined it. She shrugged, almost carelessly. I didn't ask you to stay, did I? I didn't ask you to keep fighting for something that was already over. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could she be so cold? So calculated? After everything, this was how she saw it? Like we were just some insignificant chapter in her life? I loved you, I said, my voice breaking for the first time. I trusted you. I gave you everything. And you threw it all away. For what? She didn't answer. She didn't even look at me. She just kept her eyes fixed on the floor, as if I was no longer even worth her time. I felt the anger rise in me once again, but this time, it was different. This time, it wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about the person she had become. The woman standing before me wasn't the woman I married. She wasn't even a woman I recognized anymore. She was a stranger, someone who had used me, manipulated me, and now, with a coldness I couldn't comprehend, was walking away from everything we had. I didn't know what else to say. There was nothing left to say. All the words, all the fights, they didn't matter anymore. She had already made her choice. I'm leaving, I said, my voice steady now. I'm done here. I can't do this anymore. For the first time since she walked in, Sarah looked at me. There was no apology in her eyes. No sadness. Just that same cold, indifferent expression. Fine, she said flatly. Leave. It's what you wanted all along, wasn't it? And just like that, she turned away from me, leaving me standing there, feeling like I had lost everything. I walked out of the bedroom, the weight of Sarah's words pressing down on me. It's what you wanted all along, wasn't it? Her voice echoed in my head, but the more I replayed it, the more I realized how wrong she was. This wasn't what I wanted. Not even close. What I wanted was to rebuild the trust we had, to fix what had been broken, to somehow make sense of everything. But now, standing in the hallway, I knew that was impossible. She had already made up her mind. I grabbed my jacket from the coat rack, moving mechanically, like I was on autopilot. I didn't even know where I was going, but I couldn't stay here. Not in this house. Not with her. The memories of everything we had shared, everything I thought was real, felt like chains weighing me down. The anger was still there, but it had changed. Now, it was more like a hollow emptiness, a gnawing void that I couldn't fill. I stepped outside into the cold night air, taking a deep breath as I looked up at the sky. It was a clear night, the stars twinkling above, indifferent to the turmoil I was feeling inside. I used to find comfort in the night and the quiet. But now, it just felt like another reminder that I was alone. Alone in a way that I had never been before. My world had been turned upside down, and there was no going back. I needed to get away. To clear my head. To figure out what the hell I was supposed to do now. I got into my car and drove aimlessly, not caring where I was going. The streets were quiet, the city asleep. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the rush of air outside the windows. My mind was a constant whirlwind, but I couldn't focus. Everything felt like a blur, like I was watching my life unfold through a foggy window. As I drove, I thought about the past. About Sarah. About the woman I had loved and trusted with everything I had. How had it all gone so wrong? How had I failed to see the cracks in our relationship? I had always tried to be the perfect husband. I had worked hard, supported her dreams, been there for her when she needed me. I had been patient, understanding, forgiving. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to stop her from straying. It wasn't enough to keep her from finding someone else. And now, I was left with nothing. No answers. No closure. Just the painful knowledge that she had chosen him over me. Chosen someone else over the life we had built together. I pulled over to the side of the road, the headlights illuminating the empty street in front of me. I sat there for a long time, staring out the windshield, trying to make sense of everything. I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep chasing after answers that weren't coming. I had to let go. I had to move on. But how? I had never been through something like this before. I had never been betrayed like this. The feeling was so raw, so consuming, that I couldn't think straight. I couldn't even remember who I was before all of this started. The man I had been, the one who trusted, the one who loved, seemed like a stranger now. I closed my eyes, leaning my head back against the seat, and tried to calm my racing thoughts. The pain wasn't going to go away anytime soon. I knew that. But eventually, it would fade. Eventually, I would heal. I had to. I sat there for what felt like hours, but when I opened my eyes again, the world had changed. The sky was no longer dark, the first light of dawn creeping over the horizon. The city was waking up, and I was still sitting in the same place, stuck in my own thoughts. But something had shifted. Maybe it was the new day, the new beginning. Maybe it was the realization that I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. I started the car again, pulling back onto the road. This time, I didn't have a destination in mind. I didn't need one. I just needed to keep moving, keep putting one foot in front of the other. Because that was all I could do now. I couldn't change the past. I couldn't fix what Sarah had broken. But I could move forward. And that was the hardest thing I had to accept. Moving on didn't mean forgiving her. It didn't mean forgetting what she had done. But it meant choosing to live for myself again. It meant letting go of the woman who had torn my heart apart and finding a way to rebuild my life without her. It wasn't going to be easy. Hell, it was going to be one of the hardest things I had ever done. But I had no other choice. I didn't know where the road would take me, but I knew I couldn't keep driving in circles. I had to keep moving forward. I spent the rest of the day in silence. I went to the gym, ran some errands, tried to keep my mind occupied. But every now and then, my thoughts would drift back to Sarah, to what had happened, to the life I had lost. I kept telling myself I was doing the right thing, that walking away from her was the only way I could find peace again. But deep down, there was still that nagging voice, that feeling of emptiness, that told me I wasn't done yet. I hadn't given up. Not completely. But I had to let her go. The next time I saw her, I knew it would be different. I wasn't going to be the man she left behind. I wasn't going to be the one who begged for her to come back. I was going to be stronger than that. I had to be. I woke up the next morning with a headache, the dull throb in my skull a constant reminder of how far my life had veered off course. The events of the past few days felt like a storm I couldn't escape. Sarah's face haunted me, her cold indifference, her refusal to acknowledge the pain she had caused. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, heard her voice, felt the sting of her betrayal. But something had shifted in me since the night I drove away from our house. It was like a switch had flipped. The pain was still there, but it was starting to feel more like a scar than an open wound. And for the first time, I felt a sense of clarity. I had spent so much time obsessing over what had happened, trying to figure out where everything went wrong. But now, I was ready to face the next chapter of my life, whatever that might look like. I knew I had to see Sarah again. There were things that still needed to be said, not for her, but for me. I needed closure, and that meant confronting the reality of what was left between us. The thought of seeing her again filled me with a mix of dread and resolve. I called her that morning, not knowing what to expect. Would she pick up? Would she even want to talk to me? But surprisingly, she did. Her voice was flat when she answered, like she'd been expecting it. What do you want? She asked. I hesitated for a moment. I think we need to talk, I said, my voice steady. About what's happening between us. About what's been happening. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Fine, she finally said. I'm not going to apologize again. But if you need to talk, I'll listen. It was the closest thing to an invitation I was going to get. And that was enough. I made my way to our apartment, each step heavier than the last. As I walked up the stairs to the door, I felt the weight of everything pressing on my chest. I had always thought I was stronger than this, stronger than the pain that came with betrayal. But now, standing outside the door, I felt small. I felt like I was walking into a room full of ghosts, ghosts of a life I used to know. I knocked on the door, my hand trembling slightly. A few moments later, Sarah opened it, her face a mask of indifference, just like it had been the night before. She didn't greet me, didn't invite me in. She just stood there, blocking the doorway with her body. What do you want, really? She asked, her tone sharp. You want to yell at me some more? You want to hear me apologize again? Because I'm not going to do it. I'm done with all of this. I looked at her, taking in the familiar face that now felt so foreign. I'm not here to yell at you, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I'm here to get some answers. For me, not for you. I need to understand why this happened. Why you did what you did. She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms over her chest. Why do you need to know that? Why does it even matter? It matters, I said, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. Because I need to understand why I wasn't enough for you. Why you chose him over me. I need to know what happened. I need to stop torturing myself with questions I'll never get answers to. Her face softened for a moment, but then it hardened again. You think this is easy for me? She said quietly. You think I just woke up one day and decided I didn't want you anymore? It's not that simple, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it is. The words cut through me. It's not that simple? She had made it so simple when she chose Jake. When she betrayed me, when she took everything we had and threw it away. How was that not simple? I know it's not easy, I said, forcing myself to stay calm. But you didn't try to fix it. You didn't try to talk to me. You just gave up. And that's what I can't understand. How could you just give up on everything we had? She looked away, her eyes avoiding mine. I wasn't happy, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I hadn't been happy for a long time. And when I met Jake, it felt like I was finally getting something I had been missing. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. The admission hit me like a punch to the stomach. I had suspected something was wrong, but hearing her say it out loud made it real. She hadn't been happy. She hadn't felt fulfilled. And instead of talking to me about it, instead of trying to work through it, she had gone and found someone else. That was the truth. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. Why didn't you tell me you were unhappy? I would have listened. I would have done anything to fix it. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she stood there, looking at the floor, as though the weight of my words had finally hit her. For a moment, I thought she might actually apologize, might say something that would make all of this make sense. But she didn't. Because I didn't want to hurt you, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to be the one to break everything. But I knew I was already too far gone. And I knew that if I told you, I'd lose you anyway. So I did what I had to do. I stood there, silent, taking in her words. For the first time, I saw something in her eyes that I hadn't seen before, regret. Not enough to make her take back what she had done, but enough to make me realize that maybe, just maybe, she did care. But it didn't matter anymore. Because as much as I wanted to believe there was something still worth saving, I knew the truth. We were done. There was no coming back from this. I can't do this anymore, I said, finally breaking the silence. I can't keep holding on to something that's already gone. You made your choice, Sarah. And I have to make mine. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and resignation. I know. And just like that, everything was over. There were no more words to say. No more promises to break. It was done.